Welcome to the No Limits Podcast, where limits do not exist, where you can create cash flow, equity, and real freedom with the power of real estate.
3, 4. Now, we will begin.
Welcome to the dojo. The dojo. This is Todd Toback, and welcome to the No Limits Real Estate Investing Podcast. What separates those investors who have a huge net worth and a lot of cash in the bank from those real estate investors who seem to struggle month after month after month? I can tell you it's that the investors who succeed play the long and the short game, and that's what I'm going to talk about in today's episode. But if you have not been to our website, that is nextlevelwholesaling.com. Go over there and take an assessment that I've created just for you. It's going to actually give you a score in the 4 areas of your real estate investing business, and that is marketing, acquisition, disposition, and accounting. And once you have your score, it's going to be abundantly clear to you the very next step that you need to take in your real estate investing. So that is nextlevelwholesaling.com. Also, if you have not reviewed the show on iTunes or Spotify or Google, wherever you consume content, please review the podcast. Leave an honest review. Really helps the show and me, and it'd be an awesome way for you to say thank you for the content that we put out. All right, so let's talk about the short and the long game, right? The short game is what I call short-term income, making money now, okay? And the long term is basically building net worth. And rarely do you see people who do both really well, right? But the people, again, who really have this net worth of 10, 20, 30, $100 million, they understand that this is a balancing act. And so I'm going to talk about, again, the 2 different kinds of income, the advantages and disadvantages of each. And then I'm actually going to talk about on this next episode, this is a 2-part series on how you can play both of these at the same time, the balancing act that's going to enable you to set you free. So short-term income, who doesn't love it, right? Who doesn't love cash coming in, cash in your hand, cash in the bank, baby? And this is very seductive, and for good reason, right? Anytime that you get cash in your hand, money now, it feels great, right? You get to spend that money if you're single by yourself, or if you got a family, you get to buy your kids nice things. It's going to be the fuel that enables you to actually build your business and break free. So this is very important. And when you're building short-term cash flow, it just seems to happen faster, right? There's this work that's involved in this hustle, and then you see the money, right? You love it, and you're like, yes. It's like the hamster wheel where you're on it, or the pellet where you tap the button and the pellet comes out. You tap the button and the pellet comes out. Or do you make that big sale and boom, you just feel great. And there's a reason why people love this, right? And there is some good to this, right? It fuels your life and it fuels your business. Now, for me, one of my favorite forms of short-term income is wholesaling real estate. It's how I got started in my early years, and I still have a wholesaling business today with a team that generates deals without me. But what's awesome about short-term income and wholesaling real estate, again, it's a short-term income, is that I know that if I hustle or I get my team to hustle, I'm going to start seeing money right away, right? If you are just getting started, you want to build your short-term income with real estate, you can start making 60 calls a day today, and within a couple of weeks, guess what? You're going to have a $10,000 or $20,000 or $50,000 or $100,000 check in your hand. I mean, how awesome is that? If you have a few key habits here, you're going to start to see the short-term income. And again, on this next episode, I'm going to show you how to focus on both of these, right? If you want to increase your short-term income in wholesaling real estate, I recommend that you take your database and you text the entire thing, right, immediately. Or you could break it up into 100 texts a day and text your entire database. You could ringless voicemail your entire database right now. You can call every realtor who you've ever done business with right now and ask them for a deal, and they could send you a wholesale deal. By the way, I'm giving you ideas in this episode to generate short-term income in your real estate investing wholesaling business, right? So not only am I telling you, obviously, how easy it is and the advantages, but these are actually tips that you can implement right now. Call every single wholesaler that you know right now, get on the phone, and say, do you have any deals that we could joint venture on? Right? I guarantee you call 20 wholesalers. Somebody's got a deal right now, or they will go find a deal because you just flipped a switch on in their brain. In the last podcast that I just did, I talked about tension and how that's going to pull you. So you can create tension in other people so that then they go out and find deals and partner with you, right? You can call every seller that you've ever done business with, and maybe they have another property, right? Or maybe they can refer you to a family member who also wants to sell their property, or maybe they've got something else. But again, call people you know in your network who can do business today, right? You can flip real estate. If you're going to wholesale a house, instead of wholesaling it, you could decide to make an extra 20, 30K and flip a property. Very, very, very awesome thing to do. You could JV on a deal with another wholesaler, right, and sell their deal. So call every joint venture partner you have and say, do you have any deals that we can work on together? Now, here are some disadvantages. By the way, I love wholesaling real estate. For me, I've built seven-figure wholesaling businesses that have been cash machines. I love this business. It's got some advantages, but there are some disadvantages to being a short-term real estate investor, and you must play the long and the short game. Okay. Now, obviously, you have to play the short game because you have to eat today, right? You want to be able to enjoy some nice things and go on some vacations and, have a reliable car and, do all the things that life is going to afford you, right? And so that's what I really, really like, the short-term income. The disadvantage, though, is that it is taxed differently. Okay, long-term income is taxed differently than short-term income. Not every time, but in this instance, what I'm going to talk about in this episode, there's a difference, right? I'm in California and it just gets taxed at a ridiculous rate, over 50% if you're making in that high income bracket. And if you're listening to this podcast, guess what? I'm going to create some tension in your life to make sure that you're in the highest income tax bracket on that short-term income. Although we will teach you how to shift some of this from the short-term to the long term. But the other problem with short-term income is that you tend to start over every single month, right? You hustle and you grind, and then all of a sudden you make the money, and then the money just, it doesn't keep flowing if you stop or if the team stops. So you're starting at zero every single month. And so there's the yin and the yang, the good and the bad, right? But you need that fuel for the long term. Very, very, very important. So let me talk a little bit about the long term because, I've learned now to balance this, and I recommend every one of my clients to balance this, to build the short and the long term. And again, I'll talk about this in the next episode. By the way, if you want to increase your short-term income, right, you got to learn how to sell. You got to learn how to persuade. Your mindset's got to be right. You've got to learn how to create that tension from where you are to you want to be. Okay, head on to NoLimitsSalesSystem.com, NoLimitsSalesSystem.com, and you can learn the very system that I use to teach my team how to lock up deals directly from motivated sellers, NoLimitsSalesSystem.com. All right, so let's talk about the long term. All right, long term income is where you build a business. It's where you invest right away, but you don't necessarily feel the fruits, right? So when you are investing in team members who do deals for you, that is long-term income. When you buy single-family rentals and you keep them for the long term, that is also a way. By the way, holding single-family rentals is not my favorite form of long-term income, although if you have a crash and you buy houses for dirt cheap and you hold on to them through the run-up, I think it's fantastic. I've done it. But my preferred way of actually long-term income is actually buying commercial real estate. I know some people like apartments, and I've owned apartments. I also love mobile home parks. By the way, if you have any mobile home parks and you have them under contract, or if you have a lead, feel free to go and send out a lead to support@NoLimitsRealEstateInvesting.com, support@NoLimitsRealEstateInvesting.com. I'll help you build your short-term income by buying that deal from you, all right? But this is a form of my long-term income, or if you could buy it yourself, buy it and keep it. You also can invest in a fund, right? If you don't want to go out and find a real estate deal, and one of my visions, again, for this podcast is to be able to provide an area where people who are good at the short term can partner with people who are good at the long term, or people who are good at the long term can partner with people on the short term. You can invest in other people's deals. So there are a lot of people out there who are hustling who don't have the money. Instead of you going and finding the deal, you invest money into their project and get 50% of the deal, right? That is a long-term play, right? You can use your regular income, you can use your retirement income through IRAs, but you got to work the long income, the long term. There's no excuse not to get involved. By the way, if like a commercial project seems too big for you and you don't want to go do it, you can invest in someone else's who has experience. Now, if you don't have that money, you got to work on your short-term income, right? You got to go out there, create some tension, make it happen. You also, very, very, very important, is you could put your money into, lend out your money in hard money loans, right? So you could lend your money to people who are flipping real estate, and then you can get a return on your money. So for me, actually, if I flip a piece of real estate, I actually lend money to my company and get a return. Some of my acquisition specialists have gotten so good at the short-term income, they actually lend our company money sometime when we buy properties, and we put some work into it before we put it on the market. So all great ways for long-term income, right? You want to be thinking the long-term, and you want to be thinking the short-term. Now, the advantages of the long-term is that it's taxed differently, right? Currently in the U.S., long-term capital gains is taxed at a much lower rate than regular income, okay? Now, again, it depends on the kind of income you have. Obviously, the income from commercial real estate is very, very, very tax advantaged, because you're not getting taxed basically on the gain in equity, and there's depreciation that's involved. Or if you buy a single family rental and you keep it and then you sell it, a year later, it's long-term capital gains versus short-term. The problem with some of this is, or let me say one more advantage here, is that the people who I see who are really wealthy, they are really good at this. All right. You start to see this money compound. And because actually you're not getting taxed on a lot of this stuff, before you sell, that money grows and it grows and it grows and it grows, and you're not able to touch it. It's kind of locked in there, right? And it just every single year, the property goes up in value. It's improved. Rents go up. The expenses go down, and all of a sudden, these things can turn to cash cows. 3, 4, 5 years, and this is where real net worth is built. Okay, the disadvantage of this is that it's slow. Right? You don't get like this dopamine hit. You're not going to go and, take a picture on social media and say, hey, I just did this deal, because you're not going to see the money right away. And so it's really important. You got to work on your long term, and you got to work on your short term. All right. If you want to learn how to do more deals, check out my no limit selling system at nolimitsalesystem.com. If you want to build a long term, I'm going to talk more about building long term wealth. If you've got a deal, I'd love to joint venture with you. Send it to support at nolimitrealestateinvesting.com if it's a mobile home park, which is my preferred long-term income strategy. Again, or keep it. But if anything in today's episode, know that you've got to work on both. Let me talk about on the next show, I'm going to actually give you a skill on how to focus this and how to structure your days from something that one of my mentors taught me. As a reminder, if you have not reviewed the show, please review the show. If you want to take that assessment for where you're at in your business, go to nextlevelwholesaling.com, and I'll talk to you on the next episode.